The cold wind pierced through Jake's thin jacket as he trudged along the familiar paths of Central Park. His worn-out shoes made soft, crunching sounds on the damp gravel. It was an early morning, and the city was beginning to wake up. The park, with its hidden corners and old benches, served as Jake's refuge, a place where he could hide from the pitying glances of passers-by. His stomach growled with hunger, but Jake had grown accustomed to ignoring it. Day by day, he survived through quick thinking and scavenging for forgotten scraps. As he scanned the area near a fountain, his eyes caught something shiny beneath a bench, a sleek black leather wallet. Jake's heart pounded as he stepped closer, but before he could pick up the wallet, a man emerged from behind a nearby tree. He was dressed in a long coat, his appearance scruffy, and his eyes darting around suspiciously. Slowly, the man approached the wallet, his gaze fixed on it. Jake stood still, quietly observing. He sensed something wasn't right. The man seemed intent on taking the wallet stealthily. As the man crouched down and reached for it, Jake took a deep breath, summoned his courage, and stepped forward. "Excuse me, sir, what are you doing?" Jake asked, his voice calm but firm. The man flinched and looked up at Jake. "It's none of your business," he snapped, trying to mask his surprise. "I was just checking what it was." A chill ran down Jake's spine, but he didn't back away. "This doesn't belong to you," he said, meeting the man's gaze. "You shouldn't take it." The man narrowed his eyes and stood up straight. "And who do you think you are? Telling me what to do?" he challenged, stepping closer to Jake. Jake swallowed hard but held his ground. Quickly, he bent down and grabbed the wallet before the man could react. "I'm going to hand it over to someone responsible. If you'd like, you can come with me," Jake said, his voice trembling but resolute. The man hesitated, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape route. "Do what you want, kid. I don't need any trouble," he muttered before turning and walking away. Jake stood there, his heart racing. He opened the wallet to check its contents, and his breath caught when he saw what was inside. Crisp bills neatly folded, a stack of credit cards, and an ID card with the name Donald J. Trump. A whirlwind of thoughts raced through Jake's mind. This money could change his life, food, clothes, maybe even a safe place to stay. But then his mother's voice echoed in his memory, reminding him, "Always do the right thing, Jake, no matter how hard it is." Taking a deep breath, Jake closed the wallet and looked for a park attendant nearby. "Excuse me," Jake said hesitantly, holding out the wallet. "I found this under a bench. It looks like it belongs to Donald Trump. Can you help me return it?" The park attendant raised an eyebrow as he took the wallet from Jake. When he saw the ID card, his expression shifted. "Donald Trump?" he murmured, glancing at Jake with curiosity. "Are you sure you want to hand this in? There's a lot of money in here." Jake nodded, even though his stomach twisted at the thought of what he was giving up. "It's not mine," he said simply. "I just want it to go back to its owner." The park attendant studied Jake for a moment, then nodded. "You've done the right thing, kid. I'll make sure this gets to where it needs to go." He jotted down Jake's name and an old phone number Jake rarely used but hoped still worked, then sent Jake on his way. As Jake walked through the park, his emotions were mixed. Part of him felt foolish for giving up something that could have changed his life, but another part felt a quiet pride. He had nothing, yet he had chosen to do the right thing. Jake spent the rest of the day in the park, his stomach growling louder with each passing hour. He tried not to think about the wallet, but the name Trump kept lingering in his mind. He didn't expect anything in return. He wasn't naive enough to believe that someone as wealthy and powerful as Trump would care about a homeless kid like him. But deep down, a tiny flicker of hope remained. Maybe, just maybe, doing the right thing would lead to something good. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the park, Jake sat on the cold steps, completely unaware that his life was about to change forever. After returning the wallet, Jake didn't receive an immediate response. All evening, he wondered whether the wallet had made it back to its rightful owner, or if the park attendant might have kept it. The thoughts lingered in his mind, making it hard to sleep, even though the cold of Central Park had already drained his energy. The next morning, as the pale sunlight filtered through the bare trees, Jake woke up on the familiar park bench. He curled up in his thin jacket, trying to ignore the hunger and faint sense of disappointment in his chest. He had hoped for something, a gesture of gratitude, a simple thank you, but his life seemed unchanged, quiet and uneventful. However, mid-morning, an unusual sound startled him. Jake looked up to see a sleek black limousine slowly rolling toward him. It was an odd sight in Central Park, where joggers and dog walkers were more common. The car came to a stop a few meters away. The back door opened, and a man in a black suit stepped out. He glanced around briefly before his eyes landed on Jake. With purposeful strides, he walked over to him. "You must be Jake, right?" the man asked, his voice calm but authoritative. Jake flinched slightly but nodded, his gaze filled with curiosity and apprehension. The man gave a slight smile, reached into his coat pocket, and pulled out an envelope. "Mr. Donald Trump sent this for you," he said, handing it to Jake. Jake eyed the envelope warily, but his curiosity quickly overtook his hesitation. He took it and opened it. Inside was a handwritten note on gold-embossed stationery, with a distinctive signature Jake recognized from countless news photos. "Jake, I am deeply grateful for your honest and courageous act in returning my wallet. The values you displayed are not only rare but truly commendable. I would like to meet you in person to thank you and discuss how I can help you. If you're available, please come to Trump Tower this afternoon. The bearer of this letter will ensure you arrive safely. Sincerely, Donald J. Trump." Jake read the letter carefully, feeling a wave of disbelief wash over him. Could this be real? A personal invitation from Donald Trump himself? Why would one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the world care about a homeless boy who had merely stumbled upon his wallet? Jake frowned, looking at the suited man with a skeptical gaze. "Is this some kind of joke?" he asked, his voice tinged with worry and doubt. "Why would Mr. Trump want to meet me? I just returned something that didn't belong to me." The man smiled gently, his expression steady. "This is completely real, Jake. Mr. Trump deeply values honesty, and your actions truly moved him. He doesn't usually do things like this, but when he does, he always means it sincerely." Jake still hesitated. "But this feels like too much for just a wallet." The man nodded, as if he understood Jake's doubts. "Sometimes, small actions reveal great character. Mr. Trump read the report about you and decided you deserve his personal gratitude. I assure you, this is no joke or mistake." Seeing the conviction in the man's eyes, Jake began to feel a flicker of trust. He took a deep breath, clutching the letter tightly in his hand. "All right," he said softly but firmly. "I'll go." The man smiled and opened the limousine door, gesturing for Jake to enter. "Follow me. This car will take you to Trump Tower. You have nothing to worry about." That morning felt like a surreal dream to Jake. He borrowed a clean shirt from a shelter, used his hands to smooth down his messy hair, and tried to brace himself for what lay ahead, a world completely foreign to him. When Jake arrived at Trump Tower, his nerves were stretched taut. The building's gleaming exterior reflected the afternoon sunlight, and its revolving doors seemed to radiate a kind of magic. Jake hesitated in front of the towering entrance, craning his neck to take in the sheer height of the skyscraper before summoning his courage to step inside. The lobby was breathtaking, with marble floors that stretched endlessly beneath his feet, gold accents adorning every corner. and a faint fragrance of fresh flowers mingling with the air of opulence. Jake felt acutely aware of his tattered shoes and worn clothes, which stood out starkly against the luxurious surroundings. A sharply dressed receptionist smiled warmly as she saw him. "You must be Jake. Mr. Trump is expecting you." Within minutes, Jake was ushered into a private elevator, which ascended to the building's highest floors. His ears popped slightly as the elevator rose, and when the doors opened, he found himself standing in a lavish office adorned with photographs of Trump shaking hands with world leaders and celebrities, alongside prestigious awards displayed prominently on the walls. Jake barely had time to take it all in before the man himself entered the room. Donald Trump walked in with a commanding presence that seemed to fill the space. Dressed impeccably in a tailored suit and his signature tie, he extended his hand with a friendly smile. "You're the boy who found my wallet, aren't you?" Trump said. Jake shook his hand, feeling awkwardly aware of his own calloused fingers. "Yes, sir," Jake replied quietly. "I just wanted to make sure it got back to you." Trump chuckled softly, his eyes gleaming with interest. "Most people wouldn't have done what you did. It takes character to do the right thing when no one's watching." After a brief conversation, Trump asked Jake about his background. At first, Jake hesitated, but Trump's genuine interest put him at ease. Jake shared his struggles, how his hardworking mother's efforts couldn't prevent them from becoming homeless, and the hardships that led to their current situation. Trump listened attentively, occasionally nodding, but never interrupting. When Jake finished, Trump sat up straight, his expression thoughtful. "You've faced many challenges, but you have something money can't buy: honesty. I value that deeply, and I believe it deserves to be rewarded." Jake stared at him, unable to believe his ears. Trump continued, "I want to help you, Jake. You have potential, and I think we can do something to change your situation. What do you think?" Jake's mind was a whirlwind of emotions. He had walked into Trump Tower expecting nothing more than a simple thank you. Now, he was being offered a chance to change his life. For the first time in years, a glimmer of hope lit up inside him. I don't know what to say," Jake stammered, his voice almost breaking. "Thank you doesn't seem like enough." Trump smiled, his eyes shining with encouragement. "You don't need to thank me, Jake. Just take this opportunity and prove you deserve it." Before fully committing, Trump decided to test Jake's honesty once more. During their conversation, Trump intentionally left a thick envelope stuffed with cash on the desk, pretending to forget it was there. When a staff member came in to report an urgent meeting, Trump excused himself, leaving Jake alone in the room. Jake sat still, the tension mounting as his eyes flicked to the envelope. It was a large sum of money, more than he had ever seen in his life. Thoughts raced through his mind. Could this be part of the opportunity he mentioned? Should I take it? Or is this just a test? He remembered his mother's words, "Always do the right thing, Jake, even when no one is watching." After a brief moment of inner conflict, Jake made his decision. He stood up, walked to the door, and called softly into the hallway. "Mr. Trump, you left the envelope on the desk?" Trump returned, his expression calm but his eyes sharp with observation. He walked to the desk, picked up the envelope, and smiled. "Thank you, Jake. I didn't forget. I just wanted to check something." Jake froze, realizing it had been a test. "You were testing me?" he asked, his voice tinged with surprise. Trump nodded, his eyes lighting up with satisfaction. "You passed. I wanted to make sure the values I saw in you weren't just a one-time thing. You're not just honest once. You carry honesty as part of who you are. That's what makes me trust you completely." Jake exhaled deeply, relief and pride swelling within him. Trump smiled, placing a hand on Jake's shoulder. "I don't just want to help you, Jake. I want you to see the true value of who you are and how it can change the world. Now, get ready. We have a lot of work to do to help you make your dreams a reality." Jake couldn't find the words to respond, but his eyes sparkled with determination. He knew this was not just an opportunity to change his life, but also a chance to prove that values like integrity still mattered in the world. Jake could hardly believe his eyes as he stood in front of the door to his new apartment. The small but cozy space felt like a palace compared to the cold, hard benches of Central Park that he used to call home. The apartment had everything Jake had ever dreamed of: a warm bed with clean sheets, a small but fully furnished living room, and a kitchen stocked with fresh food. For the first time in years, Jake felt safe. Donald Trump had kept his promise. Not only did he arrange a place for Jake to live, but he went even further. Trump found Jake's mother, the woman he had been separated from for so long due to their struggles. After Jake's father passed away, their family fell into hardship. Jake's mother worked tirelessly to provide for them, but when she lost her job, they ended up in a shelter. Jake wandered the streets, unwilling to be an extra burden on her. With Trump's help, Jake not only had a home, but also the chance to reunite with his mother. Trump arranged a stable job for her as a housekeeper at one of his luxury hotels. The day Jake and his mother were reunited was filled with overwhelming emotions. When the door opened, Jake saw his mother standing there, slender and tired but with a bright light in her eyes. She rushed toward him, throwing her arms around him as if afraid he might disappear again. "My boy," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I'd lost you forever." Jake couldn't hold back his own tears. He hugged her tightly, feeling the comfort and love he had long missed. "Mom, I'm sorry for leaving," Jake choked out. "I just didn't want to make things harder for you." "You were never a burden to me," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "You're the reason I never gave up. You brought us back together. Jake, we'll never be apart again." Her words were not only a source of comfort, but also a reminder of the great responsibility Jake now carried. At first, adapting to his new life was a challenge for Jake. He wasn't used to having a roof over his head or simple comforts like running water and a fridge full of food. He spent the first few days exploring every corner of the apartment, marveling at things others might take for granted. The hot shower felt like a luxury Jake couldn't believe he was allowed to enjoy. The gentle hum of the heater at night was a reassuring reminder that he no longer had to shiver in the freezing cold. When night fell, Jake lay down on the soft bed, wrapping himself in the warmest blanket he had ever known. Staring at the ceiling, tears silently rolled down his cheeks. They weren't tears of sadness, but of relief. Relief that, for the first time, he felt secure, loved, and hopeful. That night, Jake slept for 12 hours straight, the deepest sleep he had had in years. Jake now had not only a home, but also his family back. Every morning, waking up to see his mother busy in their small kitchen, brewing coffee or preparing breakfast, felt like a dream Jake never wanted to wake up from. Jake's mother, who had once been worn down by endless hardships, now found renewed hope. Her new job not only gave her stability, but also restored a confidence she thought she had lost. Jake knew that all of this wasn't just the result of Trump's kindness, but also his own decision. The choice to do the right thing when no one was watching. He made a silent promise to himself to seize this opportunity, not only for his own sake, but also to repay the generosity he had been shown. Jake's story wasn't just a fresh start. It was a testament to the power of honesty and family love to bring light even in the darkest times. The next challenge Jake faced was school. Trump had arranged for Jake to attend a private academy, covering all expenses, including uniforms and school supplies. On his first day at the new school, Jake felt completely out of place. This school was nothing like the crowded public schools he had attended before. The other students, dressed in neatly pressed uniforms, exuded the confidence of those who had always lived in abundance. Meanwhile, Jake, with his worn shoes and timid demeanor, stood out like a stranger in the crowd. As he walked down the hallway, Jake could hear whispers behind him. Some students looked at him with curiosity, while others didn't bother to hide their disdain. "That's the kid Trump helped, isn't it?" one boy said loud enough for Jake to hear. "What's he doing here?" Jake clenched his fists but kept his head down, trying to ignore the remarks. He reminded himself why he was there: to learn, to grow, and to make the most of the second chance he had been given. The pressure Jake faced didn't just come from school, but also from the public attention his story had attracted. His journey became a focal point in the media, with numerous articles praising Donald Trump's generosity and Jake's act of honesty. However, the fame also brought criticism. Online forums were flooded with debates about whether Jake truly deserved the help he had received. "It's just a PR stunt," one comment read. "There are so many other homeless kids out there who are more deserving." At first, Jake tried to avoid reading these comments, but they lingered in his mind, making him feel like he had to work twice as hard to prove his worth. One evening, after an especially difficult day at school, Jake confided in Trump. "I don't understand why they hate me for something I never even asked for," Jake said, his voice filled with frustration. "I'm just trying to make the most of the opportunity one was given." Trump listened, his expression thoughtful. After a moment, he spoke. "Jake, let me tell you something about success. The moment you start rising, there will always be people trying to pull you down. That has nothing to do with you. It's a reflection of their own insecurities. They see someone else making an effort, and it reminds them of what they're not doing. You have to ignore that noise. What matters is what you do with the opportunity you've been given." Trump's words ignited a new determination in Jake. Trump's words gave Jake the motivation he needed. He decided to confront the criticism instead of avoiding it. When a local television station invited him for an interview, Jake didn't hesitate to agree. He understood that this was his chance to tell his story in his own words, rather than letting others define it for him. Under the bright studio lights, Jake spoke candidly about his past, the struggles he had endured, and the lessons he had learned. "I never asked for this," Jake said, his voice trembling slightly but still clear. "But every day, I'm grateful for the opportunity I've been given. I know there are so many other kids out there who are just as deserving, and that's why I'm doing everything I can to give back. This isn't about me. It's proof that when someone believes in you, anything is possible." The interview aired that evening and sparked a powerful response. Messages of encouragement poured in from all over: students, parents, and even people who had previously criticized him. Many admitted they had misunderstood Jake's story. At school, the atmosphere began to shift as well. While some students still kept their distance, many started approaching Jake with genuine curiosity. One day, as Jake was walking down the hallway, a girl stopped him and said, "I saw your interview. That was really brave." Jake smiled, knowing that small changes like this were significant steps forward. Jake didn't just focus on his studies. He began spending his weekends volunteering at a homeless support center. He shared his story with children who were facing the same struggles he once endured. "I know what it feels like to think no one cares about you, but I want you to know that things can change. Just don't give up." These talks gave Jake a sense of purpose. He realized that his journey wasn't just about personal success, but about using his platform to lift others up. As the months went by, Jake started to find balance in his new life. The challenges were still there, but he faced them with growing confidence. He knew he still had a long road ahead, but now he felt like he was on the right path. One day, Jake decided to revisit Central Park, the place where his journey had begun. He walked along the familiar gravel paths, passing by the benches he once called home. As he neared the fountain, he saw a familiar figure, Mr. Green, an elderly homeless man Jake used to talk to during his darkest days. Jake hurried over. "Mr. Green," he called out, his voice filled with emotion. Mr. Green turned, his aged eyes taking a moment to recognize Jake. Then a radiant smile lit up his face. "Jake, look at you, shining like the sun." Jake sat down beside him, and the two of them talked about everything that had happened. Jake shared stories about his new apartment, school, and the opportunities he'd been given. In return, Mr. Green told him about their old friends in the park and the ongoing struggles they faced. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the scene, Jake said, "I want to help, not just you, but everyone else too. I can't forget where I started." Mr. Green smiled warmly. "You've got a kind heart, Jake. That will take you very far." Inspired by that conversation, Jake returned to Trump Tower and presented an idea to Trump. He wanted to organize a charity event to support the homeless. Trump listened intently and nodded in agreement. "That's a wonderful idea, Jake, and you're the perfect person to make it happen. Let's get started." In the weeks that followed, Jake threw himself into planning the event, utilizing Trump's guidance and connections to ensure its success. On the night of the event, the room was packed with people, business leaders, philanthropists, and even some of Jake's former classmates, all there to show their support. Standing on the stage under the spotlight, Jake's heart pounded with both nerves and determination. He shared his story, emphasizing the importance of kindness and opportunity. "I'm standing here today because someone believed in me, and now I want us to come together to believe in and support others." The event was an overwhelming success, raising tens of thousands of dollars for programs that aid the homeless. After the successful charity event, Jake felt like he was truly making a difference. But his journey was far from over. Jake knew the road ahead was still long, and he needed to keep pushing forward. One day, Trump called Jake into his office and gave him a larger responsibility. "Jake, it's time for you to step into the world of business," Trump said, his expression serious but encouraging. "I want you to join an upcoming major meeting. Listen, observe, and learn. This is your opportunity to understand how big decisions are made." Jake walked into the grand conference room with slightly trembling hands. The room was elegantly furnished with fine woodwork, crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow, and glass walls offering breathtaking views of New York City. Around the table sat sharply dressed men and women, discussing an ambitious real estate project. Trump, seated at the head of the table, led the meeting with confidence and authority that Jake had always admired. He didn't just make decisions, but skillfully guided the discussion, listened to every opinion, and offered solutions. Jake observed closely, taking notes on every detail, realizing how critical it was to communicate effectively, listen carefully, and make decisions under pressure. After the meeting, Trump pulled Jake aside. "What did you learn?" Trump asked, his gaze probing but not intimidating. Jake thought for a moment before replying. "I learned that business isn't just about money or numbers. It's also about people, about how we understand each other and work together to achieve the best outcomes." Trump smiled with satisfaction. "Exactly. You have qualities many people lack: honesty and patience. Keep learning and growing. Never lose those traits." Jake didn't just learn from Trump. He also began making his own mark. One day, Trump gave Jake a challenge. "I want you to prepare a presentation for potential donors about a youth support project. You'll stand before them and convince them to invest." Jake was stunned. "Me? Are you sure?" Trump placed a hand on Jake's shoulder, his gaze full of encouragement. "I believe in you. You're ready." Jake spent weeks preparing, researching, practicing in front of the mirror, and even asking his mother and friends to listen to his presentation. When the day of the presentation arrived, Jake stood on the stage, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted the microphone. He began to speak, sharing his story and emphasizing the importance of investing in the next generation. "I'm standing here today because someone believed in me, and now I want us to come together to create opportunities for others, those who just need one chance to change their lives." When Jake finished, the room erupted in applause. The donors not only agreed to support the project, but also pledged contributions beyond what was expected. Years passed, and Jake's story became a symbol of honesty and renewal. He founded an organization called Second Chance, focused on supporting homeless youth and struggling families. The organization provided housing, education, and mentorship programs to help them rediscover their potential. One day, at an awards ceremony, Jake stood on stage, looking out at a packed audience. Trump, seated in the front row, nodded in encouragement. Jake smiled and began his speech. "I was once a homeless boy, wandering through the park with nothing but a fragile hope. But today, I stand here not because of what I've done, but because of the opportunities one was given. Success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about what you do to help others achieve success." As he finished, the entire audience rose to their feet, applauding tirelessly. Jake left the ceremony that day filled with deep gratitude. He hadn't just changed his own life, he had made a profound impact on the lives of many others. His story stood as a testament to the power of kindness, honesty, and second chances. And in the shimmering lights of New York City, Jake knew his journey was far from over, but that was precisely what made life so worthwhile.